Happy weekend, everyone. I hope that you're all in good spirit today. And if you're not, I hope that at the end of this message, you will be. And today's message is going to be one that is, I believe, one that is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to ensure my volume is up. Yes, so today's message is going to be worth the wait. So let me apologize for the delay. However, the late start will be worth it anyhow. And today I'm gonna be starting the stream, the live, a little different from my usual. And this is so because I believe that starting it the way I plan to, it will drive home the message more solid. Yes? And for those who are familiar with the Bible and more familiar with Jesus going to Gethsemane and Judas betraying him and all that kind of stuff, you may have an idea where I'm going, right? And so today I'm going to be reading from the Amplified Version. As you all know, King James Version, yes, I love it. But also my second go-to is the Amplified Version. And also too, because the Amplified Version is easier to understand for those who may not be so, may not understand the KJV so easily. So as a result, I'm reading the Amplified Version, right? So today I'm going to be reading from St. Luke chapter 22, verses 39 to 44. And I may skip a few verses thereafter and go a little further down into the chapter, just so you can understand the point I'm going to be hitting on, or the title or the message today for today's episode. So reading from verse 39. And he came out and went, as was his habit, to the Mount Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he arrived at the place called Gethsemane, he said to them, "Pray continually that you may not fall into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup of divine wrath from me, yet not my will, but always yours be done." Now an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him, and being in agony, deeply distressed and anguished, almost to the point of death. He prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground. Now, the message I'm going to be speaking on today is at the latter part of these verses that I just read, which is verse 44 that speaks to, and I'm going to read it again. And being in agony, deeply distressed and anguished, almost to the point of death, he prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down to the ground. I thank you for those of you who are joining today, my lovely woman of worth. I love you so much. Thank you for joining. Now I'm going to skip through a few verses and go down to the verses 48. And Jesus said to him, Judas, he was speaking, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" No, I'm going to go down a little further. And a little further down, I believe it is, where one of Jesus' disciples smote him. Smite him, smote him, cut off him ears. Because I guess Peter was like so jealous, zealous, loved Jesus so much that he was like, Peter considered himself like, yo, are the boss this, How you betray the boss? What you do? What are you doing? But Jesus was so forgiving that he healed Judas's ear. Now, I read those verses as I made mention in starting the stream to drive the point home and making it very solid. And I want to talk today about emotional distress and emotional triggers. Now, we all experience distress at some point in our lives, right? And we may seek to either hide, run, or avoid the emotional discomfort or triggers. Now, for those of you who are joining with me live today, I would love for you to share your comments as I go. Yes? Because I do value your point. Yes? And the emotions we feel are, however, natural experiences given by God to assist us in filtering or processing the physiological responses in order to get to a place of healing. I'm so excited about this. I kind of feel like I'm rushing, but I want to take my time because I want to drive this home for someone who is going through an emotional distress at this point in their lives, right? Now, remember not last week, the week before, I shared on healing, giving or allowing yourself, or giving yourself permission to heal, allowing yourself to heal. Give yourself that permission to peel away the layers of hurt. I know it's not easy. I have been there. I know it's not easy, so I will not sit here and act or speak as though it is an easy thing to do. It's very challenging, and we are humans. And sometimes it's hard to peel away the layers of hurt for different reasons. And one of the things I want to hit on mostly is because of fear. Sometimes we're fear of doing it all alone. But it is okay to do it alone. I also shared on that 2 weeks ago that in doing so, sometimes even in the face of the trigger, when you smell, when you see, when you hear that trigger, it is important sometimes, not important sometimes, but it is important all the time, as difficult as it is, to face the trigger. Yeah? So I'm going somewhere, so just bear with me today, right? Now, some of the physiological responses that may be attached to some of the things that we experience may be disappointment, fear, anger, frustration, and anxiety, to name a few. Okay? I see my womb food commenting and saying it's scary to think that you have to almost move away from the thing that is hurting you. Yes, it is scary, but what we do sometimes is, if we allow the fear to hold us hostage, then what we're doing, we're actually more robbing ourselves of the greater thing that is behind the fear. Some say that fear can be seen as an acronym that is defined as false evidence appearing real. Now, fear is something that we learned. We learned fear by being conditioned. What do I mean by this? For example, when a baby is growing up, yes, it is a powerful acronym. When a baby is growing up, what happens is, there was an experiment that was done on a baby called Albert years ago. What was found is that baby, they would have given the baby a toy, and every time the baby plays with the toy, the baby would seem okay. But what they started doing, they took away the toy, and what the psychologists would have done is start banging something, making a sound, and that sound would frighten the baby. So they kept doing it, and that was conditioning the baby to become fearful. What they now did after that was to give the baby back the toy, and every time they do that, they would bang, they would make a sound. So the baby became so fearful and attached the sound with the toy. So the baby now became afraid of a furry toy. Yeah? So what could happen is that, or if a teacher slaps a child, the child could become fearful of the teacher. And later down the road, the child could now fear every teacher, thinking that every teacher is going to slap them or beat them, or even us as parents. So fear is learned. So they've been conditioned to fear. So the false evidence appearing real definition given for the acronym, what that is now saying is that the baby, or us as individuals, because the baby was conditioned at an early age, or the child, they start thinking that the baby is, or the person rather, is, let me use the teacher. So when they were younger, a teacher used to slap them and so on. So every time they see a different teacher, they go to a different grade, a different class, they think that the teacher is going to slap them. So there's this false evidence now appearing real, where they think that teacher, and that teacher may be a loving teacher, a kind teacher, a caring teacher, but it takes trust. So we're moving into something else now. It will take some kind of a trust for that baby to develop that kind of a trust to believe that this person will not harm them. I kind of feel like I'm going to be drifting away, and I want to stay right here where I really want to drive home the word. Fear is taught, it's not natural. In other words, yes, it's learned, so it's conditioned. Now, let me go back to this, what I was saying, that is one of the physiological responses to some of our experiences. And it's okay to experience these emotions. It's quite okay, because as I made mention before, that God has given us these emotions so that we can filter or process what it is that we're experiencing, so we can get to the place of healing. Now, if we're not paying attention to the different emotions that we're feeling, we may miss what it is that we're really experiencing, or what caused it, so that we can actually deal with the root causes. And oftentimes, and I'm kind of moving ahead of myself a little, but oftentimes, because we don't face the triggers, whether it be a sound of something, so again, the baby was triggered, so that's a trigger for the baby. The sound that the baby heard, knocking, that banging sound, it was now a trigger. So every time the baby hears that sound, he thinks that this toy is something that he should be fearful of. And the toy is not doing him anything, right? It's just a furry toy. So it is difficult, but it is necessary. And you may not be someone who can do it alone. You need to find help. You need someone who you can trust to get to that place of healing. Go right ahead and do what is necessary and what you believe is best for you. Because what works for me may not be what works for you. What is easy for me may be difficult for you. What is difficult for you may be easy for me, because we're all different individuals. Our makeup and our personalities are so different, right? So with all of those physiological responses to what it is that we experience, some of the reasons why we may avoid the emotional triggers, again, we see fear coming up right here. So fear seems to be one of the most dominant physiological responses to uncomfortable situations, or things that we find to be very, uncomfortable, not easy for us to face and deal with, right? And some of the reasons why we may avoid the emotional triggers, as I made mention before, it may be because of a memory, the memory of someone. So every time, let's say for example, your spouse is an abusive spouse, be it physical, emotional, verbal. Yeah? every time you may be no longer in that relationship with that individual, you may be in a new relationship, but for some reason in your mind there's something that you see, heard, or smell with this new partner that may cause a trigger. So it brings back the memory of something that you experienced with your ex-spouse. And truth be told, this new spouse may not be someone who may abuse you in any form or way. What do I mean by this? So you know I like to share personal experiences. So when I was younger, and at the conception of this podcast, I would have shared that I was abused as a young lady or young girl, a teenage mom, physically abused. And I think I can say too, verbally abused. And I remember being in a new relationship. There was something that made me feel uncomfortable in the new relationship, and the truth be told, there was absolutely nothing that really reminded me, well, let me not say it that way, how I was associated my new relationship with the old relationship. It was not a fair association. What I mean by this is that there was something that was triggering me, but it was the stern voice that I heard. And the stern voice was not an abusive voice, but because I associate the firmness with abuse, I thought this person was going to hit me when they spoke firmly or stern on something that was for my good, to better myself, to improve myself. But because I could not separate the two, I became triggered, and what would happen to me was my chest began to tighten. And I had to face that trigger. I had to sit with myself and ask myself questions and say to myself, okay, this new relationship, is this person abusive? In no form, way, or shape. Is this person harsh? Does this person mean me harm? No, this person did not mean me any harm. But because of how I associated the trigger with the past relationship, I became a little confused. It was challenging for me to separate the two. But I had to sit with myself, face the trigger, and ask myself the questions so that I could get to a place of healing. So I could recognize that this person that I am now in a relationship with, they mean me no harm. And that's a completely different person from the old relationship that I was in at a younger stage. Yeah? So fear is a killer. It's a big killer. It will rob us of everything that we have if we're not careful or mindful. Right? And some of the other reasons we may avoid the emotional triggers, it may be fear to start over. Now, a lot of us may be afraid to start over a new relationship, a new job, fear of moving from a familiar community, fear of moving away from the big family setting that we're used to. I completely understand. I have been there. And I can't sit here and tell you that I will never ever face those things or fear. I can't tell you that. But what and the fear, let me start with the fear of starting over if we're in a relationship that is just not fruitful, it's not healthy, it's not bringing life, it's just death, it's just negativity, it's just draining, it's just depleting. What the fear of starting over is telling you is that you are not worthy of being loved by somebody else. You are not worthy of being accepted by someone else because of the emotional scars that you have. And this is why it is important to face those emotional triggers and deal with the scars so that you can be in a better place, that when you go on to your new relationship, you are a better person. And I'm not saying that every time we may have it all together, because as I made mention with myself, I entered into a new relationship with all the emotional triggers and scars because I just did not know how to face them and how to deal with them at the time. But what will happen is, if you enter into a new relationship with some of those emotional triggers and scars, this person that you may be with in the new relationship, if they mean you well, if they want to see you prosper in your soul, if they want to see you at a better place, they will help you to get there. And there are several different ways, and you will know. Bearing fruit is a good thing. Simple. Look at a tree. If you have a mango tree and it's been around for years, it should be bearing fruit. It's not bearing anything. Maybe it's time for it to just go. Yeah? One of the other reasons we may avoid to face the emotional triggers is because of betrayal. Yeah. And we all experience betrayal at some point. Family betray us, friends betray us, our spouses betray us, our children betray us. It's okay. And what do I mean by it's okay? As I made mention, as I read in the scriptures before, that Jesus, he was betrayed. He was betrayed by Judas. He was betrayed by someone that was so close to him. So there is nothing new under the sun. We will experience betrayal from some of those who are closest to us, some of those who we think should care for us, should protect us, should be kind, should just be loving, and they are the ones who betray us. It is okay. You will be fine. And this is why I'm sharing this podcast today, to help you to get to a place of healing. It's never easy. Nothing that is good is ever easy. But if we mean ourselves well, we will make the extra effort and do all that we need to do to ensure that we get to that place of being better, right? Now, it may also be the fear of facing the truth, meaning we're living in denial. Yeah, we do that sometimes. The signs, the facts, the symptoms, the everything, the what he call that, the red flags, they are right in front of our faces. The truth is looking at us, but we tell ourselves sometimes that it's okay, it's gonna work, all right, this person will be better, they will get better, they will improve, they will do this, they will do that. Yes, it is good to give people second chances. Yes, it's good to be merciful. It is good to be kind and gracious, and I'm all for that. I endorse that. But in the same breath, how long are you willing to sacrifice your well-being, your emotional well-being? How long are you willing to sacrifice your growth and development? How long are you willing to sacrifice your healing? How long are you willing to sacrifice the things that matters to you most? Those are questions I would love for you to ask yourself today. And feel free. If you want to comment right there, it's welcome. Welcome, and thank you for those who are just joining. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Now, one of the other reasons we may avoid the emotional triggers, it's because of the abuse that we've experienced, whether verbal or physical or emotional. We may be afraid to face the fact that, hey, this relationship that I'm in, it's abusive, it's not healthy, it's degrading, it's depleting, it's draining, and this person will just not change. I used to think like that when I was in the abusive relationship as a young teenage mom. I used to tell myself that it will get better. I used to tell myself that my spouse at the time will never hit me again. In fact, he would say, I love you, I will not hit you again. You're seeing a smile on my face. You must be like, but this woman is crazy. How can she be smiling and saying something like that? I am smiling because when I look at it now, at the time, I was ignorant of what love means. And the Word of God defines it plain. It is not boastful, it's not prideful, it does not envy, it does not harm anyone, it does not keep account for wrongdoings and all that kind of a thing. But I was ignorant. They say love is blind. Love is absolutely not blind. The love of God is not blind. We are blind. There are scales that's been on our eyes that has hindered us from seeing the truth that is so plain and obvious before us. So I used to think that, hey, it's going to get better. But in fact, it got worse. The abuse continued. I experienced the abuse. And it had caused me to become such an aggressive individual at the time that I even used to walk with a weapon. Because I said, next time, this is what I'm going to do to defend myself. So I was now taking on an identity that did not belong to me. That was not in my nature, naturally. That was not a part of who God created me to be innately. No. So it took me a while to get over it. So I understand if you are facing fear, to move on. If you are facing fear and you think that, hey, I am afraid to move forward because I just don't know what the future holds. None of us know what the future holds. Only God himself can reveal what the future holds. But how will you know what the future holds for you? The better future, the best future that is, if you do not take a risk. And life, a lot of people will say life is about taking risks or chances. And I can agree to some point. As well as we can look at it from a spiritual or biblical perspective to say it's having faith, right? And in having faith, we're taking chances or risk, doing things that we have no idea how it will turn out. So a question that I want to pose to you today that you could ask yourself another question. If I am willing to take a risk, take a chance, to have faith in believing that I can buy a house, I can save and buy a house, I can save and buy a car, I can save and go to university, or maybe someone can sponsor me, or I can get a new job, or I am so academically advanced that I can get a job that will pay me better, a job that has way more benefits or have benefits, period. How or why is it that you will not, or you are not willing to take the very same risk, chance, or have the very same faith, believing that you can walk away from this relationship that is abusive, emotionally, physically, verbally, to move away from it and not allow fear to cripple you from experiencing the best of the best? That's a question I want you to ask yourself today. If you want to answer in the comment, feel free to. If not, you can sit with yourself and ask yourself that question. And I'm going to be leaving a lot of questions with you for you to ask yourself today. And I will be doing that because a lot of times we do not sit with ourselves and ask ourselves the question. And this, in doing so, it's a part of introspection. It is a part of understanding, why am I feeling this way? What happened why I felt this way? And when it happened, what position, what frame of mind, and stuff like that I was in. Yeah? So I hope you're paying close attention today, right? And I want you to get to a place of healing like I have. I am so passionate about helping women of worth to know their value, because I myself, I struggled once where I did not know my value, and that is why I had settled for so many years for less than I deserve. So I am not here to judge, I am not here to discriminate, I am simply here to share with you, to provoke you, to inject some faith in you, and hoping that when I share these stories, when I share these experiences, when I share these words of wisdom, biblical wisdom, it will provoke you to sit with yourself and to ask yourself these questions, so you can help yourself to get to that place of healing, because everything starts with us as individuals. You have to be hungry and desperate to walk in your healing, to be there, because there's nobody who is going to just heal you like that. It doesn't work like that. Unless it's miraculous, where Jesus will just come and just heal you. But there are certain things that you still will have to do. You still have to take some practical steps. And Even if you go to the therapist, the psychologist, you go to the clinical psychologist, you go to the counseling psychologist, you go to the therapist, whoever you go to, it don't make a difference. There's something that you have to do. If you're aching in your body, you go to a physiotherapist, them call them. They will tell you that there are certain things that you have to do on your own. So it goes to show that we have a responsibility as individuals to play our part in getting to our place of healing. So you see, nothing comes easy. Yeah? And one of the other reasons we may fear or avoid the emotional triggers is because of fear to face, again, the triggers because of who it may be affiliated with. Like I made mention before, families, friends, spouses. We may be afraid to face the triggers because we may be thinking, you know, I'm doing this person injustice by thinking that they are abusive, by thinking that they are unkind, by thinking they are all kind of things. When it's so obvious that's who they are. And we make excuses for people sometimes. We do that. We're humans. But in making excuses for others, we have to think about ourselves too, to say, what am I doing for myself? If I'm willing to do that for them, what am I doing? Or you could maybe even ask yourself this other question: what are they doing in turn for you? Yeah? So the betrayal, it's heavy because we're not expecting those whom we love or who say they love us to betray us. But Jesus was betrayed. I'll say it again, because sometimes it is so hard for us to get over this hurdle of betrayal, because we just think that it should not have happened to us because of who we've been. You may be a kind individual, you may be very loving, caring, and you just think that people take it for granted. It could be spousal relationships, it could be friendships, it could be on the job, it could be in your family, it could be in your church family too, because church family sometimes, because when we're human, sometimes people can be very unreasonable and unfair. And I'll just say it like it is. So it is okay if you are naturally that kind of a person, but it is not okay if people betray you and take it for granted. But I place emphasis on Jesus being betrayed because he's what? He's the Savior. He's such a great man that even though he experienced betrayal and he was experiencing distress, he still did what was necessary, and that was still going to the cross so that we can experience this healing I'm talking about today. Yeah? And I just want to say that in the scriptures too, Jesus spoke about praying. Now, I've mentioned several times in different other streams that I pray, and I love to pray. I pray about everything. Whether I'm right or I'm wrong, I think it was unfair, I think it was fair. If it's something small, if it's something big, whatever it is, I love to pray. And I can confidently and boldly say that it is because of praying being one of my main or number one tools that I use why I am at this place that I am today, why I'm able to sit and share with you confidently, without fear, without shame, without guilt, because of what God has done for me. And I know it can do for you too, right? And Jesus, as I read in the scriptures earlier, he prayed. He did not just pray once, he prayed again, and he prayed earnestly. So it is important for us to pray. Some of you might be watching, you might be thinking, oh, I cannot pray. I don't know how to pray. We're Jamaicans, we grew up in learning the Our Father prayer. Very simple. That's something that the disciples like, God, we don't know how to pray, teach us to pray. That's a starting point. Another way you might say can't pray, you might be complaining to your friends, you might be sharing with your whoever you trust, your spouse, whoever it is, and say, boy, you know, said this happened, and so on and so forth. That's prayer. You can make that into a prayer and say, God, I'm feeling hurt. I don't know what to do. I feel confused. I feel betrayed. I feel this. I feel that. I don't know what to do with these emotions right now. I feel like giving up. That's a prayer. You can make that into a prayer. And he hears. Yeah? And praying is also important because in the scriptures it said that when Jesus prayed, an angel came and strengthened him. When you pray, it will strengthen you. When you pray, manifestations will come. I am a living testimony of manifestation. This what you're seeing is manifestation. It's not just about putting on a makeup because I have on makeup, ear look pretty, dress up, whatever. Forget about that. You can see other posts that I've made that there's no makeup, no fix up, no nothing. But in the same breath, when you take away all of that, the joy that I have, which is my salvation, the Lord, the peace that I have, it is He who has given it to me. It is because of Him. This is the manifestation. I am here sitting and sharing with you without feeling fear. Some of us may not be able to do what I'm doing boldly, and that's fine. You may not have been called to do it, number one. Number two, you may not be at that place where you're bold enough, confident enough, or have walked in your healing to understand how to share without, feeling judged or criticized or condemned. So I get it. And we are all at different places, at different spaces, at different times. That's fine. But this is a manifestation. Being here to sit with you boldly and to share like this is because of my prayers and what God has done. He has answered. Yeah? So it is important to pray because remember, it will bring forth manifestation. Your prayers are not unheard. And even if you're just crying because you can't find words to express, He understands even the very groanings. He understands the very tears, so it's okay. Don't worry about it. God's hearing you. He's not made by human hands, so He is not deaf and Him eye not blind. He must see everything and Him hear everything. Yeah? Just so you know. So I'm going to be closing this one soon. And remember I said, I'm going to be asking you a few questions today for you to sit with yourself so you can get to a better place. Yeah? So I want you to ask yourself this question. How are your emotions? I'm asking you today, how are your emotions? I ask you that question because it is important for us to be aware of our emotions and allow ourselves to process or feel them and to find out the what behind the emotions. Now, I am not there 100%, but I'm getting better and better and better. And when I sit in some of my psychology courses, it provokes me. It injects provocation. It injects introspection the more. It injects something that causes me to sit with myself and ask myself questions and makes me aware. Because sometimes when I sit in these classes and I'm like thinking, okay, I didn't even know that. And I remember doing a research, or I was a participant in a research in one of my courses. One of our lecturers, asked us to be a participant. And of course, there was some, incentive. We got points for it. So the whole class agreed. And I remember that the form was asking questions about emotional awareness and how I handle things, and when you're in an argument, do you quickly react? Do you think about it? Do you think you're worthless? Questions like those, along those lines. Now, a lot of the questions, I don't think they are applied to me in that sense, meaning like if I think I'm worthless. Well, maybe because I'm at this place. I don't think I've ever thought of myself being worthless, but I did not know my worth. I did not know my value. So when I read through the form, there were a lot of questions too that was on it. I was like, sometimes I think I am more quicker to react than to think things through before, So it is important to be emotionally aware. There's what is called emotional intelligence. So there are different types of intelligence, as I've learned in another course. And this is a part of emotional intelligence, being aware of our emotions, being aware of what is it that we're feeling in the moment. If we're in a good mood, we're in a bad mood, how we respond or react, how we handle, how we manage, how we decide, stuff like that. So it is important to be emotionally aware. I'm helping you today, I know. Just let me know for sure, so I'm not sitting here fooling myself. Just let me know this is helping you, right? The other question I wanted to ask yourself is, what is your mood like? Were you in a good mood or a bad mood when you made the decision? I want you to ask yourself this question because your mood or mood can affect or impact our decision making. Have you ever made a decision you were so upset and you thought you need to make the decision right now because you felt maybe too like you were under pressure, and you're like, let me just do it and just get it out of the way because I just want them out of my ears, I just want them out of my head, whatever. You made a decision and it was something that actually could have waited. And when you're in a better mood and you sit and it's like, what did I just do? Did I just tell them, yes, I'll help? And truth be told, emotionally, you're not even in a space to help nobody right now because you need some time to process your emotions and to just deal with you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, can I get back to you on this one? And I'm sure you've heard this kind of a statement all the time. It took me a while to get it, so it's okay if you don't get it yet. But if you do, this is what it's really saying. The other question I want you to ask yourself today is, are you reacting or responding? So everything when I say already is like me I reiterate everything, or me I place emphasis on it to make sure say it drive home, right? Are you reacting or responding to your feelings? Feelings are subjected to change. Good mood today, bad mood tomorrow. Bad mood today, good mood tomorrow. Bad mood this hour, good mood an hour later. Good mood this hour, bad mood an hour later. Feelings are subjected to change. We're humans, so it is important to assess your emotions, right? The next question I want you to ask yourself is, are you seeking a confirmation bias to support your faulty belief or perceived thoughts? Yeah, I feel that one. I don't know if you feel that one, but I felt that one because I was so guilty of this. I've been guilty of this a lot of times. In the early stages, let me just place emphasis more on this one before I share another story, right? So I want you to ask yourself this question because I want you to seek out the reliability, which is the consistency of the manifested evidence that is before you. For example, the behavior. So the behavior of the individual who has caused you hurt, who has betrayed you and all these things. Are their behavior or the pattern of their behavior, is it consistent? In other words, abuse you today, oh, I won't do it again. Next week, abuse. Next month, 3 months. A year pass, 2 years, 3 years, still abuse. The behavior of the individual is consistent. In research, there are 2 things that researchers look out for: reliability and validity. And those things are key in doing researches. If the method or the procedure or the apparatus that is being used, if it is not reliable to test what it says it's going to test, the results are going to be faulty. In other words, if another researcher should try to replicate some of these very same things that were used in their research to see if what the previous researcher had done, if it's reliable, if when they do it and it's not, that research or that research result may not be so trustworthy. You may not be able to trust in it. So as a result, it's important to pay attention to how consistent it is, their behavior is, or even your behavior, in the sense that, talking again about the mood, when you're making decision, when you're emotionally distressed, when you're facing an emotional trigger, what is your behavior like? So it's important to pay attention to that, right? I want to ask you another question. Are your beliefs influencing your decision making? So pretty much everything is tied into one another. It sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but if you pay keen attention, you'll recognize that there are different elements to each question that is key to helping you to be more emotionally aware, to make better decisions, to improve your mental health or emotional well-being, and to get to your place of healing, right? And I want you to ask yourself this question, because when you evaluate your belief system, you will see if the information that you have available, you will see if it is limited to your beliefs. And if it is, you may need to access other information and measure for validity. So remember, I talked a few seconds ago about reliability and validity when doing a research. The validity is speaking to the accuracy. So your belief system, what you know, the information that you have available, your emotion may even limit that at the point. Because, for example, if you're angry, you're not really processing the information properly, or all the information. You may just be processing a minimal. So right now I'm just angry. You're not thinking straight, as what I say in Jamaica. You're not thinking straight. I'm angry right now, so you know what, just do what you want to do. You might just simply say that, just do what you want to do, it never really matter. And that's a lie. It's your emotions that's talking at the moment. So when the smoke is clear and everything settles, you may be thinking, wow, I did not assess the situation properly, and so therefore it's my anger impaired me, so therefore I was not able to process things properly so that I could make the proper decision. Yeah? So as a result, this is why it's important to evaluate your belief system. And sometimes too, our belief system may be one of such that what we've been taught growing up, because there are some things that we were taught directly or indirectly, and these things can impair our decision making, because it may be limited, because what we were taught or what we learned years ago may not be accurate in and of itself, or it may be accurate but is not enough information to make a precise decision. Hope this one is helping you. Yeah? The last question I want you to ask yourself is, are you looking back at the situation and think, I knew this would happen. We love say this. Me know so this would have got me now. So I'm going to answer the next question. So if you didn't know so this would have happened, why you never do something about it from the initial stages? Why you sit down and wait until the relationship gets sour? If you knew so much that this would have happened, why you never take for yourself? If you knew this would have happened, why you never do right by yourself? I'm just playing around when I say those things, because I've been there. So I want you to ask yourself that question, because it's called, what bias is this called again? There's a name for this, I don't remember the bias, the type of bias that it is, or an error in psychology. But what it is saying is that sometimes we may say we knew, but the truth is, sometimes we may not have really known that the thing would have turned out how it did. And in a sense, you can look at it as a confirmation bias because it's supporting what we thought or the system, belief system that we have. But I don't think that's the one. Anyhow, what this is enabling you to do now that you know, because sometimes too we may say, if I knew this would have happened, still yet we allow the very same things to happen to us in other relationships, whether it be spousal, friendships, work relationships, and stuff like that. And we don't apply the lessons that we've learned from it. And that is wisdom. Because if we don't apply the lesson we learn, we don't learn nothing. And sometimes we say, oh, I learned my lesson. You don't learn nothing because the same thing will repeat itself. So you have not applied the wisdom. You have not understood what really happened, what really took place. So that is giving you an opportunity when you know and recognize that, hey, this really played out. Now what you have, the opportunity that now is presented before you is so that you can make better decisions going forward. Yeah, that's what it's doing for you. So don't beat up on yourself too much to say, oh, I knew this would have happened and why may I allow this to happen? Because we tend to do that to ourselves a lot too. And I can speak for us, women, some of us at least, that, you know, we tend to beat up on ourselves, but it's okay. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some love. Be patient with yourself. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. Again, be gracious to yourself. It's okay. The mistake happened. The situation happened. But you now have an opportunity to do better, to make better decisions, to improve yourself, and to be a woman who walks in value and victory. You are able to do so just like I am today. So I just want to close out today by reminding you that though you may be betrayed, though you may be frustrated, you may be disappointed, you may have been angered, you may be experiencing anxiety, you may be experiencing fear, I want you to know and remember, though you are experiencing agony, though you are in distress, it is okay to feel all of those feelings, those emotions. It's okay to experience them. They are a natural part of our experience emotionally. God gave them to us so we could filter and process them so we can get to the root cause of why it is or what it is that is causing us to feel the way that we do, to react or respond the way that we do, so that when we do the necessaries, we are better able to make better decisions, to improve ourselves, to also get to a place of healing. And so I want to close off by saying and reminding you also to sit with yourselves and ask yourself these questions that I have posed to you today in order to help yourself to get to a place of healing. It all starts with you. When you are able to sit with yourself and start the process, it will be so much easier when you sit before a therapist, a counseling psychologist, a clinical psychologist. It may be so much easier because you are able to identify and acknowledge what happened, and you will be at a better position to get to the place of healing too, because you have recognized that something did happen. You're human. Be gracious to yourself. Remember also, Jesus was betrayed, but what did he do? He forgave his betrayer. Forgive your betrayer. Because if you don't forgive your betrayer, if you don't forgive those who have disappointed you and hurt you, what's going to happen? You're going to have bitterness, hatred, anger, resentment eating away your heart, eating away your soul. And that is another level that can take, that I could speak on, that is that is related to stress. Stress and distress, you can interchange those two words. Stress can bring on what am I looking for? Illnesses. It's I don't want want to say proven because they don't like to use the word proven in psychology. There's evidence to support that stress and distress can cause us to have sicknesses or illnesses. So try to be mindful of these things that you experience and learn to handle them, learn to manage them, and get help where necessary. I love you, but God loves you more. It was good to sit in with you today, and I really do hope that this one provoked you in one way or another to do some introspection in getting yourself to a better place of healing. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for joining. Thank you for staying tuned. Thank you for sharing. And remember, if you're not yet following, should you come upon this broadcast after it has ended, remember to follow, remember to share. For those who are not, if you have families, remember too, lovelies, for the woman of worth in your life who you believe is struggling with hurt, struggling with pain, struggling with so many other different things, remember to share this stream with them if they're on Instagram. And if they are not on Instagram, they can watch the rebroadcast on YouTube at Aura, that's A-U-R-A, Woman of Worth, Francis. I'm gonna share the link in the description below so that you can share it with someone so they too can learn how they can walk in value and victory and to know their worth. Yay! We are all women of worth. Shalom. Bye-bye.